Superman began development in 1974 when the rights were acquired from DC Comics, but part of that contract was that a sequel would need to be filmed back-to-back. So they hired Mario Puzo, the writer of The Godfather, to provide story as well as screenplay. That seems like just a tad too much, doesn't it? I mean, to have the writer of one of the most influential films of all time pen a superhero flick, only for the mere cost of $600,000.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
And if that doesn't sound like a lot, how about this? Marlon Brando, who plays Jor-El, agreed to play the part for $3.7 million and 11.75% of the box office, meaning in the end, he got a total of $19 million, and that was just for 12 days of work. Why am I harping on the salaries of these two? Just wait a minute. The script was submitted in 1976 and pre-production began in Rome, a place Brando couldn't even go to. Why? Well, because he had a warrant out for his arrest in all of Italy for the sexual obscene nature of his film Last Tango in Paris. And I'm not even going to get into that because I don't want to mix Superman with what goes on in that movie. It involves butter. Anyway, a year later, the film hired its director, Richard Donner, even though the producers wanted to hire George Lucas or Steven Spielberg. But both had other commitments, and he was only paid $1 million for both Superman 1 and 2. Remember, Puzo was getting over $600,000 to write his story and screenplay. But Donner threw out Puzo's work because mainly it was over 500 pages long. He would have been shooting that movie for years. Instead, Donner brought in Tom Mankiewicz to completely rewrite both films, but he only got a creative console credit because the Writers Guild of America refused to let Donner remove Puzo's name from the movie as the story writer. Now do you see why that amount just seems like a bit much? As for Brando, well, he was just unprofessional, thinking that the part of Jor-El was beneath him. But I guess the only way to really see it is to watch it. This is Superman. The movie starts off with a kid reading an Action Comics comic about the Daily Planet in the 1930s, with theater curtains around it? I'm here to watch a movie, not a play.
Why does the strongest man in the world have the heaviest heart in the world?
This opening introduction goes on for 5 whole minutes. Luckily, we have John Williams' amazing, iconic score to ignite our imagination as we fly through space. Look, I can't afford that music, okay? After our trip, we land on planet Krypton, where Marlon Brando, playing Jor-El, is sentencing 3 terrorists in a trial.
Their ultimate aim of sedition.
And is clearly reading from cue cards. No, really. Brando refused to memorize his lines for this movie, and the crew put cue cards all over the set when shooting his scenes. For the crime of an unprofessional nature, I find you guilty.
Guilty. Guilty.
Oh, that's right. Those 3 are guilty too, and they get shot out of Krypton's Thunderdome and imprisoned in a sheet of space glass. More on them in a future episode, but for now, Jor-El tries to convince the Council of Krypton's impending destruction, but they won't be swayed.
Will you abide by the Council's decision?
The dude abides.
Jor-El and his wife Lara say their final goodbyes as they prepare to launch Kal-El to Earth in a very tearful speech. That I have now ruined for all of you because remember, Brando is reading from cue cards. Probably like this.
The Son becomes the Father, and the Father the Son.
They launch baby Kal-El into space like the fricking Wonkavator as Krypton's destruction concludes with a planetary explosion.
I felt a great disturbance in the Force, as if millions of voices suddenly cried out in terror and were suddenly silenced.
The baby ship travels thousands of light years before landing on Earth, in Kansas no less, where he's picked up by the Kents. Yeah, I know it's just a baby, but I'm not going to take any chances. After displaying he's not like other kids, the Kents adopt him, rename him Clark, and he grows into Jeff East?
Joel, Just give me the keys, all right?
I mean, it kind of looks like East. I mean, he did have to apply 4 hours of prosthetic makeup to make him look like Christopher Reeves. And then, of course, he doesn't sound like him because he was overdubbed with Reese's own voice. For crying out loud, movie, why don't you just cut him out completely? I'm starting to see how East feels about this. Clark is kind of an outcast, as the Kents have raised him to be a very ordinary person and holds a very respectful admiration of his adoptive father, Jonathan Kent, played by Golden film legend Glenn Ford.
Gilda, are you decent?
Me?
What, you don't immediately recognize that footage? Alright, how about if I showed it to you like this?
Are you decent?
Me?
Unfortunately, Pa Kent isn't long for this world. Suffering a heart attack, he dies, leaving Clark to understand his own path. And am I the only one who recognized how few people attended his funeral? I mean, it's just his son, his wife, and that other couple over there, who honestly could just be the two from the cover of the book for the recently deceased.
Nice fucking model!
Unable to sleep, Clark discovers his green alien crystal, realizing he has to seek out his destiny. But first, I guess we're gonna need breakfast. Clark leaves home, apparently traveling to Hoth, and creates his Fortress of Solitude, where he uses more crystals, essentially like hard drives that contain all Kryptonian knowledge of 28 known galaxies. One has to wonder exactly how much storage space one of these crystals has. Remember, back in the 70s, these things only had a capacity of about 300 megabytes, and these crystals contain all known knowledge.
It has the largest collection of literature in the Western universe.
So, Clark gets what amounts to an e-learning course from Zordon here. Well, I guess I shouldn't be complaining that he's here after all. I mean, originally Brando wanted Jor-El to appear to Clark as a suitcase or a bagel. Yes, I'm serious. And remember, he got paid $19 million for this role, and he didn't even want to be in it.
Come with me now, my son, as we break through the bars of your earthly confinement.
The journey for each of us begins here.
After 12 years at Krypton High, we flash forward to Metropolis and to the Daily Planet, where we meet Lois Lane, played by Margaret Kidder.
I could get back my wedding dress that I was going to have for when I find a husband.
And we also meet a pretty minor character in Jimmy Olsen, played by Mark McClure. Why bother pointing out a character whose role in the film is next to nothing? Well,
the last thing you need is headaches.
God, I love it when the movies make this easy on me. Almost 50 minutes in, we finally get to see the iconic Christopher Reeves, who's also known for, well, honestly, just Superman. I mean, yes, he starred in other movies like Village of the Damned, for example, and even turned down a lot of roles like starring in Fatal Attraction, Pretty Woman, and Lethal Weapon. But his career was tragically cut short due to his horse riding accident in 1995 that left him paralyzed from the neck down. Just sucks. Christopher Reeves' portrayal of Clark Kent was wholly original. The idea of making Kent a bumbling, socially awkward character has been what defined Superman's more humble half, a staple ever since. Reeves got the nature of the character from watching Woody Allen movies.
You see, the rest of the country looks upon New York like we're left-wing communist, Jewish, homosexual pornographers.
Great. Now I can't unsee it. It doesn't take long before we get our first heroic act, and trend for years to come, saving Lois from being a dumbass.
Is it worth risking your life over $10, 2 credit cards, a hairbrush, and a lipstick?
You just described the exact contents of my purse.
And an unbelievable one, too. She's a woman carrying around just 2 credit cards? Come on. We'll get back to them later, but first, why don't we get to know our villain for the movie, and of every Superman movie, Lex Luthor. What? Are you trying to tell me that's not Lex Luthor? Is it the hair? Like the fact that he's got some? Yes, Gene Hackman plays a hairy Lex Luthor because he didn't want to shave his head for the part that he got $2 million to play, by the way. Freaking actors, man. As for his 2 henchmen, we have Miss Tessmacher and Otis.
Meet Lotso Huggin' Bear.
Please, call me Lotso.
Lex's plan is both sinister and brilliant, but I'll let him explain it.
This obsession with real estate. All the time, land, land, land. Mr. Tetzmacher, when I was 6 years old, my father said to me,
"You're losing your hair?"
Before that, remember my father said, land.
That's right, land. He's essentially just a crooked real estate agent. He doesn't even have LexCorp. We have here. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and please take a minute to like, comment, and subscribe for more super videos.